Get Hydrated, the podcast about the people of healthcare. I'm your host, Brandon Plafka, and I'm also the founder of Hydra BPM. And this is our second release for our mini-series Doses, a shortish segment sharing thoughts and information, things I consider to be the lifeblood for both personal and professional development. Be sure you go and check out our earlier release from this week with Erin Morris, a former director of nursing and now working in an ambulatory setting as a pediatric nurse. We discuss the differences and challenges between previous healthcare settings that she's been involved in compared to her current setting now. Also, on this episode of Doses and now on all future recordings, you want to be on the lookout for our secret word. Our secret word is our free gift giveaway. It's as simple as listening to either the Doses and or full episodes, finding out when I announce the secret word, going to the website, hydrabpm.com. Again, that's HYDRA, B as in boy, B as in Paul, M as in Mary.com. And scrolling down, entering the secret word, your name and address, along with your email so we can verify identity, and you will be entered into the drawing to win a free gift simply for participating in the show and visiting the website. This week I was listening to the Jordan Harbinger podcast, and his guest on this particular episode was Jonathan Haidt. And I apologize if I'm mispronouncing his name, but he is a social psychologist. In the episode, he and Jordan are discussing some of the really significant changes that are beginning to take place in Generation Z. Generation Z, for those who may not be aware, is the generation that actually is behind the millennials, so the younger group coming up now. Those that are in college now and then coming up through high school. And what Jonathan describes is talking about how this generation has become very sensitive to their feelings and is in a lot of ways looking for protection from words. Everyone so very easily offended, it seems these days. People are speaking out on social media and different outlets, and as Jonathan mentions, intent has almost no meaning. There is no context a lot of times to what's being said on social media, so you read words and every individual is left open to their own interpretation of that message. Of course, obviously the platform doesn't allow for the messenger to share that context a lot of times. Look at something like Twitter, who has limitations in characters, so there's certainly not an opportunity to do it there. And then let's face it, frankly, if somebody tried to give some explanation probably behind what they were saying, one is either nobody would read it, or two, that too would get taken out of context. So Jonathan mentions that intent really has no bearing anymore, and it's simply about the words that are being said, and then it gets interpreted based on however that receiver of the message takes it themselves. And with the wrong person receiving the message and interpreting it incorrectly on social media with so much exposure, that messaging can spin out of control. In a lot of ways, I agree actually with what he's saying, but I want to take it a step further and talk about what I think about is a root cause to many of the challenges I think we're seeing both in this area and other areas of our culture. I think it simply circles back to the loss of verbal communication, and that our entire culture has shifted away from phone calls, verbal communication, face-to-face meetings, and more than 90%, or for some people, maybe 100% of their communication is either through typed communication and or one-sided from hiding behind a screen. When this type of communication was early on in its development and release and was gaining traction, we of course couldn't anticipate all the consequences that may come from it. At the time it was built around efficiencies and quick ways to communicate, and now it has become the norm, unfortunately, in my opinion. And I think my point of this and the root cause that I circle back to, and just how it's impacting our lives in so many areas, is beyond the value that it can have in quick, short, easy communications. I would venture to say what you're finding is that it is physically becoming difficult for people to have face-to-face communications, and furthermore, look at it as far as being able to speak your truth to someone who's face-to-face. For decades, humanity has struggled with being able to wrap their head around their feelings, understanding their emotions, and effectively communicating those. Even when texting and email didn't exist, it was difficult a lot of times for humans to have honest communication face-to-face about how they're feeling or how the other person is feeling. And now what you're finding, magnified more than ever, is we're losing the ability to be able to sit in front of someone face-to-face and communicate, articulate how we're feeling and why we're feeling the way we are, or frankly, just being honest with them. And for some, I would say just having a conversation with somebody, let alone, forget how serious the conversation is, or trying to be vulnerable about your thoughts and feelings. I think we see it every day. Is you run into those individuals who you can tell are uncomfortable looking you in the eye, and I think that it's underestimated in so many ways how impactful this is in many areas of our life. And for those who know me, know that I've been on this soapbox for quite some time. And I think it's very, very important that step by step, we look for avenues and opportunities to regain that human connection, and think about how important it is sometimes just to hear somebody's voice or just to verbally interact with somebody. You're kidding yourself if you think that sending a text message and receiving a reply is giving you the same feeling of interaction or togetherness. It's not. You may fool yourself into thinking it is, but it's not. And of course, you can dissect this 100 different ways between business communication, personal communication, and all the inner workings of that. And I could literally probably do 100 doses in talking about my thoughts and feelings and the research that is out there in regards to these types of things. But really circling back to Jonathan's research and his approach to what he's seeing in the culture of Generation Z, is we're obviously talking about on a very high level, if you will, but also understanding just how impactful, again, that potential root cause is in losing that ability to verbally communicate with somebody. Like anything else in our lives, you don't use it, you lose it. And so given the theme of the dose, today's secret word is call. So be sure you go to hydrabpm.com, scroll to the bottom. You'll see a button there that says secret word. Click on the button. You'll get a message pop up asking for your name, email address, the secret word, and your address for the gift to be mailed to. And in closing, let me just say, no, you don't need to point out the irony of me needing to send this message through a podcast.